Welcome to today's story, The Silent Witness by Amjad. It's a story of crime, love, family, and secrets that hurt more than the truth. Detective Ethan is a smart and honest police officer. He solves crimes. But one case has always stayed in his heart. His wife's twin sister, Rachel, was murdered many years ago. The case was closed, but it never felt right. Now, after so many years, Ethan decides to open the case again. Something is telling him that the truth was never found. This is not just another crime case. This is personal. This is family. Ethan loves his wife, Olivia. She is kind, brave, and also very silent about her past. When Ethan starts asking questions, he finds that Olivia's family is full of secrets. And what's worse, some of those secrets may destroy everything Ethan believes in: justice, love, and truth. In this story, you will walk with Ethan as he finds the truth step by step. You will feel his pain, his confusion, and the moment when he must choose: follow the law or protect the woman he loves. Let's begin the story. Ethan sat alone in his study, late at night. The rain was tapping on the window, but his mind was louder. He looked at the old case file, Rachel's murder. It had been closed for 7 years. Unsolved, the file said. But to Ethan, it never felt complete. Rachel wasn't just another case. She was his wife's twin sister. Someone Olivia loved deeply. Olivia never talked much about Rachel, or about her father, or about her childhood. It was as if her life started only after she met Ethan. That silence, that gap, it bothered him. Why did the file feel edited? Why were the fingerprints unclear? Why did the witness statements sound too clean? Ethan felt something was wrong. Very wrong. He looked at the photo of Olivia and Rachel together. Two smiling faces, but behind those smiles was a storm waiting to be uncovered. Ethan began to look deeper into Olivia's family. He knew very little about them. Olivia never spoke much about her past. She had told him that her father was a strict and angry man. She said her childhood was not happy, but she never gave details. Now, Ethan needed to understand everything. If he wanted to find the truth about Rachel's death, he had to understand Olivia's family first. Olivia and Rachel were twin sisters. They were very close when they were children. Their mother, Sophia, loved them both, but she was a quiet and scared woman. Their father, David, was the head of the family. He was a powerful man, always shouting, always controlling. He made all the decisions. He did not like when someone questioned him. People in the neighborhood knew him as a proud and angry man. When Ethan visited Olivia's old neighborhood, people remembered the family. Some said David was a respected man, but others whispered that he was cruel inside the house. They said he did not allow Sophia to talk to neighbors. He kept his daughters away from the outside world. Ethan began to feel that something was wrong inside that house. Ethan then met an old neighbor. She was a kind, old woman named Emma. She remembered Olivia and Rachel. She told Ethan that the girls were bright and full of life. But one day, everything changed. The girls stopped coming outside. Rachel especially started looking afraid. Emma said she once saw Rachel crying near the garden. But when David saw her, he pulled her back inside. After that, Emma never saw Rachel again. Ethan felt heavy inside. It was as if the house had hidden so many things. He thought about Sophia, the mother. Why did she never say anything? Why did she stay silent even after her daughter died? Was she protecting someone? Or was she afraid? Then Ethan found something strange. In the old police reports, David was not even questioned properly. His statement was short. It only said that he was not home at the time of Rachel's death. That was all. No one had checked where he really was. No one had asked Sophia or Olivia. The case was closed quickly. Too quickly. Ethan went back home and asked Olivia carefully, "Why didn't your father ever go to jail? Wasn't he suspected?" Olivia looked down. She stayed silent for a long time. Then she softly said, "Because there was no proof." Her voice was flat. No anger, no emotion. Just quiet. Ethan noticed her hands were shaking. He knew now that this case was not just about a murder. It was about a family broken from inside. And maybe, just maybe, someone had kept the truth hidden on purpose. Ethan could feel that Olivia was hiding something. He did not push her too much. He knew that the truth would only come out slowly. She was scared, not of him, but of the past. Still, Ethan had to keep going. He was a detective. And now, more than that, he was a husband who wanted to protect the woman he loved by finding out what really happened to her sister. He went back to the police station and searched the old files again. This time, he asked for the original reports and not just the copied ones. He found something strange. One of the fingerprints found on the murder weapon had no match in the police system at that time. But now, with new technology, Ethan asked the lab to run the prints again. This time, there was a match. The fingerprint belonged to David, Olivia's father. This was a big clue. If David's fingerprint was on the weapon, it meant he had touched it. Ethan felt sure that David was somehow involved. But when he asked for the murder weapon from the police evidence room, he found another shock. The weapon was missing. There was a note saying it was lost during a shift in storage 5 years ago. Ethan began to suspect that someone did not want this case solved. He decided to visit David. It had been years since Olivia had spoken to her father. David now lived alone in a small flat in another city. He looked older, weaker, and tired, but his eyes still showed pride. He did not open the door easily. He only let Ethan in when he heard his name. At first, David pretended not to know anything. He said he had nothing to do with Rachel's death. He said it was a terrible thing and that he had been at work that day. But when Ethan told him about the fingerprint match, David went quiet. Then, after a long silence, he said something shocking. He said, "Yes, I killed her. I did it. I was angry. She was arguing with me. She shouted at me and said I was a monster. I lost control." Ethan could not believe what he was hearing. David was confessing to the crime. But something felt strange. His tone was flat. There were no emotions in his voice. It felt like he was reading lines from a script. Ethan started to feel unsure. Was he telling the truth? Or was he lying to protect someone? Back at home, Ethan told Olivia about the confession. Olivia looked shocked, but only for a second. Then she quietly said, "I always knew he could do it." But Ethan noticed something in her eyes. Not relief. Not sadness. Something else. Maybe fear. Later that night, Ethan got a call from the forensic lab. The results from the old blood sample had come in. The DNA on the murder weapon did not match David. In fact, it proved that David could not have been the killer. This made no sense. David had confessed, but the DNA said he was not guilty. Why would someone confess to a murder they didn't commit? Ethan began to think again. What if David was lying on purpose? What if he was protecting someone? Or what if someone had changed the evidence years ago? Suddenly, a new question entered his mind. What if Olivia knew more than she was saying? Ethan could not sleep that night. His mind kept going back to the same thought. Why did David confess if he was not guilty? Why did Olivia react so calmly to the confession? Something was wrong. Something deep and hidden. Ethan knew that if he wanted to reach the truth, he had to look not just at the facts but also at the people involved. Their actions, their words, and their silence. The next morning, Ethan went to visit Sophia, Olivia's mother. She lived in a small house outside the city. She looked older than her age. Her hands trembled, and her eyes always looked down, as if she was afraid of meeting anyone's gaze. When Ethan greeted her, she gave a weak smile but did not say much. Ethan sat with her for a while. He did not ask questions immediately. He talked about the weather, the house, and daily life. Slowly, she began to feel more comfortable. Then he gently asked, "Mom, do you think your husband really killed Rachel?" Sophia became silent. Her fingers started shaking more. She looked around the room, as if checking if anyone was listening. Then she whispered, "I don't know. I don't know what is true anymore." Ethan leaned forward and said, "You were there that day. You saw your daughters. You know what happened. Please help me." Tears came into Sophia's eyes. She said, "I wanted to help my daughters, but I was too scared." David was not just angry. He was cruel. He controlled everything. Even me. I stayed quiet all my life. I thought if I obeyed him, he would not hurt them. But I was wrong. Ethan asked, "Did he hurt them?" She nodded slowly. He was not a father. He treated them like objects. He shouted, beat, and insulted them. Rachel tried to fight back. She was brave. She always stood between Olivia and her father. But that made David hate her more. Then Sophia said something that made Ethan freeze. The day Rachel died, I heard voices. Loud fighting. Then silence. When I came out, Rachel was gone, and Olivia was crying, holding something in her hands. A cloth. It had blood. Ethan asked, "Did you see who killed Rachel?" Sophia shook her head. No. But later, David told the police he was not home. Olivia did not say anything, and the case was closed. Ethan felt as if he had found an important piece of the puzzle. Olivia had seen something, maybe more than just seen. She had held a bloody cloth. Why was she silent all these years? Ethan returned home. Olivia was sitting on the balcony. She smiled when he came, but her smile did not reach her eyes. Ethan sat beside her. After a long pause, he said, "I met your mother." Olivia's smile faded. She told me what happened that day. Olivia looked down. There's nothing to talk about. Ethan said, David confessed to the murder, but the DNA proves he's innocent. That means someone changed the evidence. Olivia stood up quickly. Her face turned pale. Why are you doing this, Ethan? Why now? Because I want to know the truth, he replied. Olivia whispered, sometimes the truth does not help. It only brings pain. Ethan stood too. If someone changed the evidence, then that person wanted to protect someone. Or punish someone. Olivia looked at him with tears in her eyes. What if someone did it for love? That sentence hit Ethan hard. Olivia was not denying anything. She was not lying. But she was not telling the full truth either. He realized now. Olivia had done something. Something big. Maybe she had changed the evidence. Maybe she had blamed her father on purpose. But why? That night, Ethan looked again at the old file. He studied the crime scene photos. He noticed something he had missed before. The bloody cloth in the corner. It was never mentioned in the official list of evidence. Someone had removed it before the police arrived. And now Ethan was almost sure of one thing, that someone was Olivia. Ethan sat alone in his study, staring at the photos from the crime scene. His heart felt heavy. The truth was getting clearer, but it was not the kind of truth he had wanted. Every clue, every small detail now pointed towards Olivia. She had been at the scene. She had seen something. She had touched something. And most of all, she had done something with the evidence. He looked at the timeline again. The police had arrived 20 minutes after a neighbor called them. In those 20 minutes, anything could have happened. And now, Ethan was sure that Olivia had used that time to hide or change the evidence. But the question that haunted him was, why? He went back to Olivia the next morning. She was quiet, folding clothes in the bedroom. Ethan stood at the door and said, "I need to know what happened. Not for the case. For us." Olivia sat down slowly on the bed. She took a deep breath and looked at him with tired eyes. "You already know, don't you?" Ethan didn't reply. He just waited. Olivia began to speak. Her voice was low and filled with emotion. "I didn't kill Rachel, Ethan. I swear I didn't. But I changed the scene. I moved things. I wiped the knife and threw away the cloth." Ethan asked softly, "Why?" Olivia held her hands tightly together. "Because I thought he killed her. My father. I thought he finally went too far. That day, he and Rachel had a terrible fight. She shouted at him. She said she would go to the police, tell the truth about everything. He got angry. I left the room for a few minutes. When I came back, Rachel was lying on the floor, bleeding, not breathing. Tears filled her eyes, but she kept speaking. My mother was frozen. She didn't move. I panicked. I thought he did it. My father. I wanted to protect my mother. I wanted to protect myself. I couldn't let him get away again. So I took the bloody cloth and hid it. I touched the knife to make sure his prints were on it. I did everything to make it look like he killed her." Ethan was silent. The room felt cold. The woman he loved had framed someone, her own father. But the man she framed had been cruel, violent, abusive for years. Did that make her action right or wrong? Olivia continued. When the police came, they asked questions. I lied. I told them I didn't see anything. I didn't tell them what I did. The case was weak. With my father's past, the police already suspected him. But they didn't have enough proof. So the case went cold. Ethan sat down beside her. But why didn't you tell me when we got married? Why did you keep this inside you for so long? Olivia looked down. Because I was afraid. I was afraid that if you knew, you would stop loving me. That you would see me as a liar. Or worse, a criminal. And also, I started to doubt myself. What if my father didn't do it? What if I was wrong all along? Ethan now understood her silence, her sadness, and her fear. She had lived for years carrying this guilt. Not just about her sister's death, but about her own actions after it. She had tried to fight the past in her own way. But now, the truth had finally come out. Still, one question remained. If David didn't kill Rachel, then who did? Olivia said quietly, "There was someone else in the house that day. I didn't realize it then. But now, when I think about it, I remember hearing a sound, a door closing, a shadow. I thought it was just the wind or my mind playing tricks. But maybe it was someone else." Ethan's mind started turning again. If another person was there, maybe they were the real killer. Maybe Olivia had changed the evidence thinking she was protecting her mother, but in doing so, she had hidden the truth. A different truth. He stood up and walked to the window, his thoughts heavy. The case was not closed. It had just taken a new turn. Ethan knew he had to find out who that other person was. If Olivia was telling the truth, then someone else had entered the house on the day of the murder. Someone who had a reason to hurt Rachel. And that someone had never been found. It was time to go back to the basics. Ethan picked up the old investigation report and started reading it line by line. He found the names of all the people who had been questioned back then. Neighbors, relatives, family friends. Most of them had said the same thing. They had heard shouting, then silence. One neighbor, an old man named Mr. Benjamin, had reported seeing someone leave the house, but his statement had not been taken seriously because he was known to have poor eyesight. Ethan decided to meet Mr. Benjamin. The old man still lived in the same house next door. He welcomed Ethan warmly and invited him in. They sat down and Ethan slowly brought up the topic. "Do you remember the day Rachel was killed?" Mr. Benjamin nodded. "Of course. It was a terrible day. That house was full of noise. Then suddenly, there was nothing. You told the police you saw someone leave the house," Ethan said. "Yes," the old man replied. "A young man. He had a hoodie on. I didn't see his face clearly, but I remember he was tall, and he walked very fast, like he didn't want to be seen." Ethan asked, "Did you know who he was?" Mr. Benjamin shook his head. "No, but I remember something else. He was wearing a red bracelet. The kind young boys wear these days. Not many people wear it in this colony." That small detail caught Ethan's attention. A red bracelet. It was not much, but it was something unique. Maybe he could find someone who matched that description. He thanked Mr. Benjamin and left. His next stop was the local school Rachel used to go to. Ethan found her old friend, Emily, who now worked as a teacher there. She had known Rachel well. He asked her if Rachel had any fights or problems with anyone before she died. Emily thought for a moment. Rachel was strong and bold. She didn't let people bully her. But there was one boy. He liked her. A lot. But she didn't feel the same. His name was George. Ethan asked, "Did she reject him?" "Yes," said Emily. "And after that, he became strange. He followed her around. Sometimes he waited for her outside college. She told me he made her feel uncomfortable." Ethan now had a name, George. He asked Emily if she remembered anything else about him. She said, "He always wore this red thread on his wrist. You know, for style." That detail hit Ethan like a lightning bolt. A red bracelet. Just like what Mr. Benjamin had seen. Ethan started digging into George's past. He found that George had moved away shortly after Rachel's death. His family said it was because of a job in another city, but the timing seemed strange. Ethan made a few calls and found out that George was now living in Pune, working as a gym trainer. He decided to go there and meet him in person. When Ethan arrived at the gym, he saw George easily. He was tall, well-built, and still wore the same red thread. Ethan introduced himself as a writer doing research on old college memories. George smiled and agreed to talk. Ethan slowly brought the conversation to Rachel. George's face changed. He became quiet. "She was a nice girl," George said, "but she didn't like me. I thought we could be something, but she never gave me a chance." Ethan watched his body language. There was guilt in his eyes. Maybe fear too. "Did you ever visit her house?" Ethan asked casually. George looked up quickly. "No, never." Ethan nodded but knew he was lying. He had to find a way to prove that George had been there. Something more than a red bracelet or a witness with poor eyesight. He thanked George and left, but his mind was now racing. Olivia had changed the crime scene because she thought her father killed Rachel. But what if George was the real killer? Ethan was now close. Very close. But to solve the case, he needed hard proof. And for that, he would have to return to the place where it all started. The house. The scene of the crime. One more time. Ethan returned to the old house where Rachel was killed. The place had been locked for years. It was full of dust, cobwebs, and broken furniture. But to Ethan, it felt like time had frozen there. Every corner held a memory. Every wall seemed to whisper something. He was not just there to look around. He was there to find something new, something everyone else had missed. He started with the living room where the fight had taken place. He looked at the walls, the floor, the small decorations. He imagined Rachel standing there, angry and shouting. He imagined Olivia leaving the room. He imagined the silence that followed. Then he went to the kitchen. It was small, but neat. There was nothing out of place. But when he opened the bottom drawer, he found something strange. A small red thread caught in the edge of the drawer. It looked just like the thread George wore on his wrist. Ethan picked it up carefully and placed it in a bag. He knew it wasn't enough to prove anything in court, but it was another piece of the puzzle. He moved next to the back door. It was the door that led outside to the garden. Ethan checked the lock. It was broken and not recently. It had been broken for years, which meant anyone could have entered the house from the back without being seen. He looked outside. There was a narrow path that led to the road behind the house. Maybe that was how George had come in and left without being noticed. Ethan stepped into Rachel's room. It was exactly how it had been left after the police finished their work. Her books were still on the shelf. Her diary was still locked in the drawer. Ethan used a small pin to open the lock. The diary was old and its pages had turned yellow, but the words were clear. He began to read. Rachel had written about George. She had written about how he made her feel uncomfortable. She said he followed her, sent her messages, waited outside her college. One line caught Ethan's attention. "If something happens to me, tell Olivia to look in the brown envelope under my bed." Ethan checked under the bed. At first, there was nothing, but then he saw something taped under the wooden frame. A brown envelope, covered in dust. He opened it. Inside were printouts of messages George had sent Rachel. Some were sweet, but others were angry, threatening. One message said, "If I can't have you, no one will." This was strong. This was something Ethan could use. He took the envelope and added it to the evidence he was collecting. Back at his office, Ethan compared the red thread from the kitchen drawer with the one George wore. They were the same kind, same color, same thickness. He sent it to the lab for DNA testing. If George's skin cells or sweat were on it, it would prove he was in the house that day. While waiting for the results, Ethan did one more thing. He went back to Olivia. He showed her the diary. She read the page and looked at him with surprise. "I never saw this before," she said. "She never told me about the envelope." Ethan told her everything. The thread. The threatening messages. George's lies. Olivia sat down, her hands shaking. "So it wasn't my father? It was him all along." Ethan nodded. "It looks like it. But I need the DNA report to be sure." Days passed. Then the report arrived. The red thread had George's DNA on it. Now there was proof. Ethan called the police and handed over everything. Rachel's diary, the threatening messages, the thread, the lab report. George was arrested soon after. During questioning, he first denied everything. But when he was shown the evidence, he broke down. He confessed. He said he had gone to Rachel's house that day to try one last time to make her love him. But when she pushed him away and told him to leave forever, he got angry. He lost control. He didn't mean to kill her, but he did. After that, he ran away. The truth had finally come out. But the story was not over. Because now, Ethan had to decide what to do about Olivia. She had lied. She had tampered with a crime scene. She had tried to send her father to prison. She did it to protect her mother, yes. But it was still a crime. Ethan sat alone once again, holding Olivia's wedding photo. He loved her. But he also loved justice. He had solved the case. Now he had to make the hardest choice of all. Ethan sat in his office, the case file closed in front of him, but his mind was far from settled. The murder was solved. George had confessed. The truth was out. But now came the part no one had trained him for. His wife, Olivia, had committed a serious crime. She had hidden the real evidence. She had planted fake clues. She had framed her own father. Ethan could not ignore that. He kept thinking about why she did it. Olivia's childhood had not been easy. Her father, Thomas, had been controlling, angry, and abusive, especially toward her mother. Olivia had seen her mother suffer for years. When Rachel was killed, Olivia saw a chance to break that cycle. She believed her father was the killer. Or maybe she just wanted to believe it. And so, she changed the story. She gave false information to the police. She hoped to protect her mother by getting rid of the man who had ruined their lives. But Ethan was a police officer. He had taken an oath to uphold the law. Could he just look the other way? Could he forgive his wife and stay silent? Or would that make him no different from the people he used to catch? He went home that night and found Olivia in the kitchen. She was making tea. When she saw him, she gave him a tired smile. She looked different now, older, worn out. Maybe because the weight of her secrets was finally out in the open. "I know you're angry," she said quietly. Ethan didn't reply at first. He sat down and looked at her. "You didn't trust me," he said. "You didn't tell me the truth. Even after we got married, you kept this from me." Olivia nodded slowly. "I didn't want to lose you, and I didn't want to lose my mother again. She suffered so much, Ethan. I thought if my father was gone, she could finally breathe." Ethan understood her pain. He had read the old reports. He had seen photos of her mother's injuries. Her father had used his power to avoid punishment for years. But still, changing evidence and framing someone, no matter how bad that person was not justice. "I didn't know how to fix it," Olivia continued. "After I planted the clues, things went out of control. And when George disappeared, I thought maybe God had handled it. Maybe it was over." Ethan took a deep breath. You can't fix one wrong by doing another. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. "So what now? Are you going to arrest me?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He stayed quiet and thought carefully. Legally, she had committed a crime, tampering with evidence, giving false statements, misleading an investigation. If someone else had done it, he wouldn't hesitate. But this was different. This was his wife. He decided to go to his senior officer. He told him the whole truth about Olivia, the fake clues, the emotional history with her father, everything. His senior listened patiently, then said something that stayed with Ethan. "Sometimes justice is not just about law. Sometimes it's about understanding the full story. But remember, if you protect her now, you must carry that choice for the rest of your life." Ethan left the room without any clear answer. He didn't want Olivia to go to prison. But he also couldn't ignore what she had done. He spent the next few days watching her, thinking about their life together. He remembered the happy moments, the difficult ones, the pain they had both shared. Finally, Ethan made a quiet decision. He wrote everything down in a private report. He explained Olivia's role in the case, her reasons, and how her actions had affected the investigation. But he didn't submit the report to the court. He sealed it and left it in the police records room under confidential status, only to be opened if needed in the future. Then he went home, sat with Olivia and said, "I will not turn you in, but from now on we live with complete honesty. No more secrets. No more lies. We move forward, but together." Olivia cried and hugged him. She knew he had taken a great risk for her, but she also knew the pain would never fully go away. The past would always be part of them. Rachel's memory, her death, the truth behind it. It would stay with them forever. Still, they had survived the storm, and now they had a chance to rebuild their life. Not on lies, but on truth, however painful it may be. Months passed after Ethan made his quiet decision. Life slowly began to settle. On the surface, things looked normal. Olivia went back to her work at the school. Ethan continued his duties at the police station. They still had dinners together, went on evening walks, and talked about daily things. But under that normal life, something had changed forever. A deep silence lived between them. A silence filled with unspoken truths, hidden pain, and memories that refused to fade. Ethan often looked at Olivia when she wasn't watching. He tried to understand her thoughts. Was she truly at peace with what she had done? Did she regret her actions? Or was she simply relieved that the lie had not destroyed them? She smiled more now. She laughed with the children in the neighborhood. But Ethan knew that a part of her was always thinking about Rachel. One evening, Olivia came to him with a small box. Inside it were Rachel's old diaries. Ethan gently opened one. The pages were full of poetry, dreams, little drawings, and thoughts from a young woman who had wanted to live a big life. Rachel had wanted to travel, to open her own art gallery, to help girls who came from broken families. As Ethan turned each page, he felt his chest tighten. This was the sister-in-law he never truly got to know. All he had seen of her was through a case file. But now, through these pages, she felt alive. Olivia said softly, "She was the brave one. She always protected me. Even in school, when boys teased me or teachers shouted, she stood up for me. She wasn't afraid of our father like I was. And that's why. Maybe that's why he hated her more." Ethan asked gently, "Do you think he killed her?" Even though George confessed. Olivia looked down. "Sometimes, I still believe he did it. Even if he didn't hold the knife, he created the fear. He made our house a prison. Maybe he didn't kill her with his hands, but he killed her spirit. And that led to everything else." Ethan thought about that. It was hard to argue. Abuse is not always physical. Emotional and mental pain can leave deeper scars. Thomas had damaged everyone in that house. His actions had created years of fear, anger, and silence. And even if the law didn't punish him for murder, he had still destroyed lives. Meanwhile, the sealed report Ethan had written stayed locked in the police archive. No one had touched it. No one knew about it. But Ethan never forgot it was there. It reminded him of the line he had crossed, the line between being a husband and a police officer. And every day, He asked himself if he had made the right choice. One day, Ethan received a letter. It was from Thomas. The letter was short and strange. Thomas wrote that he was moving away to a small village, far from the city. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't say much about the past. But one line stood out. Some people destroy with hate. Others destroy with love. I was both. Ethan showed the letter to Olivia. She read it, folded it quietly, and threw it into the fire. She didn't say a word. Later that night, Ethan sat alone on the balcony. He looked at the stars and remembered the moment he first met Olivia. Her soft voice, her eyes that looked both strong and sad. He had fallen in love with her because of her kindness. But now he saw another side. Her pain, her strength, her choices. He realized something important. People are not just good or bad. They are full of many layers. Olivia was a loving wife, a caring daughter, a scared sister, and a woman who made a dangerous decision. Ethan was a good officer, but he was also a man who had broken rules for someone he loved. And Rachel, who had once been a bright light, had been lost in the darkness others created. Truth is never simple. Justice is not always clean. And love, sometimes, demands sacrifices that leave deep marks on the soul. Ethan had learned all this. Not from books, not from police training, but from his own life. The case was closed, but the story still lived on, inside him, inside Olivia, and in the quiet memory of a girl named Rachel, whose silent witness had changed everything. 2 years had passed since Ethan closed the case that changed everything. Life had moved forward, but not in a straight line. Some days were easy. Others were heavy. But that's how healing works. It takes time, and even then, it leaves marks that never fully disappear. Olivia had started a small art class in the neighborhood. Children from nearby schools came to learn painting and drawing. It was her way of keeping Rachel's dream alive. Every year on Rachel's birthday, Olivia held a small exhibition. The children's paintings were displayed, and neighbors would come to see. Olivia never told them why she did it. But Ethan knew. It was her way of remembering her sister. Not through pain, but through creation. Ethan had become quieter in his work. He still solved cases, still helped people, but he had changed inside. He was no longer quick to judge. He had learned that truth was not always black or white. Sometimes, the truth was gray, and hidden beneath years of silence, shame, or fear. One day, a young officer named Jack joined the police station. He was smart and full of questions. He had heard about Ethan's sharp mind and came to him often for advice. Ethan became his mentor. But there was one case Ethan never spoke of, the one that involved Olivia, Rachel, and her father. Jack once asked him, "Sir, have you ever had a case where you had to choose between the law and your heart?" Ethan paused for a long time. Then he said, "Yes, and I still carry it with me every day. Sometimes the law gives answers, But only the heart tells us what we can live with. Jack nodded, not fully understanding, but someday he might. Meanwhile, Thomas, Olivia's father, had disappeared from public life. No one had heard from him since he left the city. Some said he lived alone in the hills, away from everything. Some believed he had changed. Others thought he never would. For Ethan and Olivia, it didn't matter. They had closed that chapter. Forgiveness wasn't given, and perhaps it never would be. But they had chosen to stop letting his shadow control their lives. One rainy evening, Olivia and Ethan sat together on the balcony. She showed him a new painting she had finished. It was of two women holding hands, one looking ahead, the other fading into a soft light. It was clear who they were. Ethan looked at the painting for a long time and said, "She would have been proud of you." Olivia didn't answer. She just placed the painting on the wall and lit a small candle below it. Sometimes, justice doesn't come from courts. Sometimes it comes from finding peace, from breaking the cycle of pain, and from building something new from broken pieces. That's what Ethan had learned. That's what Olivia had lived. And that's what Rachel, even in death, had helped them do. The silent witness of her story had spoken, not through loud words or legal action, but through quiet strength, through truth, and through the courage to love again, even after everything had been lost. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.